Security is top of mind across the stack for us. One of the base problems we're aiming to solve was that risk involved with cross-chain transfers. Once you get your assets, you actually have them. They're not subject to the interdependencies of wrapped assets.
Hello, everyone. You're watching Halborn Flash Videos, and today we're talking to Brendan from Zetachain. So, Brendan, first of all, welcome and thanks for joining in. Please tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, excited to be here. I'm Brandon. I lead product at Zetachain. My background's kind of a combination of working on my own startup, 2018 to 2020, that we sold at the end of 2020, more in Web2 social space. I have a background of design and engineering and joined Zetachain pretty early on when it was kind of at the inception stage to focus on product and design, but have kind of transitioned into overlooking most aspects of product, meaning some protocol development as well as user-facing product, validator ecosystem, all that fun stuff.
Excellent. And design and engineering are like really unique backgrounds to blend together for a product position as well. So, yeah, very interesting to have you on this chat today. So, tell us a bit more about Zetachain and what are you exactly building?
In brief, Zetachain is a new L1 focused on interoperability. So it has an EVM compatible smart contract layer. So you can basically deploy anything you would on Ethereum mainnet on Zetachain. But the caveat is Zetachain smart contracts and a couple other features have access to orchestrating, meaning taking input from and outputting data and value to external blockchains. And this interoperability isn't really bound to a single communication protocol, something like IBC. It is chain agnostic, meaning Zetachain connects to Bitcoin in the same way it connects to Ethereum, in the same way it can connect to future chains such as the Move ecosystem, like Aptos and Sui, Cosmos, EVM, Solana, etc. So a smart contract on Zetachain can build cross-chain applications super easily. You can deploy Uniswap, for example, on Zetachain, and that Uniswap contract can take input of native Bitcoin from a native Bitcoin wallet and output, like trade against Ethereum on Ethereum mainnet without much work on the developer side. So we think that's pretty cool and kind of a new paradigm of building cross-chain applications that hasn't been seen yet and kind of eradicates a lot of the risk and complications involved in building cross-chain using just messaging solutions that you kind of see proliferating over the past year or two. And then on top of that, Zetachain also supports its own flavor of cross-chain messaging where you can actually transfer value between chains without wrapping assets. So that in itself can let you build a lot of applications that do not require a vault that is exploitable that you've seen in a lot of the bridge hacks over the past few years that have lost hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars for people. That's kind of a high level what Zetachain is.
Well, thanks for that. The future is cross-chain, and definitely the use cases that you try and handle around interoperability makes it all the more special, right? And you touched upon the idea of transfer of value without the wrapping of assets needed. I assume this happens with the Zeta token. So maybe you'd like us to explain this a little bit more to us.
Yeah, being this L1 blockchain, and also I don't think I mentioned it's built on Cosmos SDK, Tendermint consensus, but is EVM compatible. Zeta is at the core of all of that functionality I described. So smart contracts, you pay gas to deploy, use, send Zeta on Zetachain's EVM. And then on top of that, for this whole messaging situation, we call them just cross-chain transactions. When you send from source chain, you can bundle an amount of Zeta, and that is partially used for paying gas fees or protocol fees, and then also as a sort of one-way peg. So if you want to transfer value from, say, Ethereum to Polygon, you can swap to Zeta, meaning if you had USDC and you want to swap to Matic on Polygon, you have USDC, you swap it to Zeta, you send that via our messaging system. And that's really just calling a contract with your Zeta attached to it and some data. That Zeta is burned and then minted on Polygon, and then that can be traded to your target asset. So in that whole process, it's kind of a two-sided swap. And once you have your assets, you're not at risk. Whereas in a wrapped situation, when you get your assets on the destination, you're kind of building up this honeypot on the source that can potentially be hacked. And we've seen that tends to not be out of the question.
Yeah, definitely. Can you also tell us a bit more about omnichain dApps? I've seen that being used a lot in the language that you used to describe Zeta. So yeah, would just love to learn a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I think naming is always something top of mind for me. But omnichain dApps are a sort of concept where you have an application that you can truly just need to deploy once, and it is, backwards and future proof in that as Zetachain adds chain support, or maybe not even Zetachain specific, but as these layer zeros that connect multiple chains together add chain support, your application doesn't really need to do anything. It just kind of has access to the full interoperability layer and can orchestrate things between different chains. So you can think of a DEX like the Uniswap example I described before, where you can deploy a Uniswap V2 contract, and that can, in turn, as more assets and more chains are added, can just trade and have pools of assets from anywhere. And users interacting with these dApps don't have to really have a notion of network or like switching between different blockchains per se, unless it is very relevant to the application itself. In a lot of cases, you can just use an application from your Bitcoin wallet, from your EVM wallet, doesn't really matter. So it opens up the design space to sort of have an application where a user truly has a one-step experience. They just connect and use. They don't have to jump through a lot of hoops that you see in a lot of products today.
Yeah, definitely helps the adoption and enablement of cross-chain all over again. Sure. And tell us a bit about the team behind Zetachain and what's the story? How did you guys come about this?
Yeah, so the founder started working on this, I believe, in June of 2021. And his background, very early at Coinbase, ended up creating a token called Basic Attention Token. He was focused on solving this problem that we kind of just talked about of cross-chain, where just using any crypto product in 2020, 2021 was super convoluted, especially when you started to see a lot of the early cross-chain patchy solutions come up. And that was the problem he wanted to solve. And a few joined, including myself, with this mission to find a lasting solution to that problem. And played with a few ideas. It kind of bounced from just this sort of basic token bridge solution to what we now have as Zetachain, which is a new L1. That whole process took a little while, probably towards the end of 2021 or early 2022 was when I would say the fuller vision came together, and in that we could build a token bridge, but something that can actually serve as the future-proof solution, we believe looks more like Zetachain's form right now. Started building that, initially built out the messaging layer that was still based on the same consensus, but then got the kind of time and space to build out Zeta EVM, which is the more fully fledged vision of the whole omni-chain smart contracts, omni-chain dApps.
Okay, so where in this journey on the product roadmap are you guys at, and when is the mainnet coming up?
The protocol is in audit stage right now, and kind of just tying off a few features and gearing up to actually open source the protocol code. So I would say we're in pre-mainnet. We are going to have incentivized testnet launching very soon. And after that, we'll basically just be gearing up for mainnet. And mainnet's targeted end of Q2 or early Q3 of this year.
Very exciting phase to be in. And of course, we discussed audits. So I have to ask you more about the security strategy and how your team approached it and why even partner with cybersecurity providers such as Halborn.
Security is top of mind across the stack for us. One of the base problems we're aiming to solve was that risk involved with cross-chain transfers. The messaging solution speaks to that in itself, in that we kind of eradicate it to end users, where once you get your assets, you actually have them. They're not subject to the interdependencies of wrapped assets. And things kind of underlying that, the protocol itself, going through multiple protocol audits, having best practices for the validators we're working with, as well as just suggestions to the broader ecosystem of key management, operational security, that sort of thing. And then even at the DApp or user interface level, getting those interfaces audited, as well as the smart contracts they interact with, fully audited multiple times through, just making sure we are kind of covering all of our bases for end users. Because kind of at the end of the day, that's who really matters, whether end users are developers or actual people interfacing with UI.
Always good to hear the security first approach teams take, and why specifically Halborn.
With audits, there's the real work, and it's kind of represented by the reputation Halborn has. And from some of the people we had talked to who have worked with you guys before, it seemed like a perfect fit where you guys are kind of able to do, you guys aren't just specialized to smart contracts, for example, are able to do kind of comprehensive analyses of protocol and working with some of the projects that have some rhyming factors architecture wise, I think really helped in making the decision to work with Halborn. Just kind of a comprehensive partner we can work with, even beyond mainnet, is kind of why we wanted to go with you guys.
Yeah, it was great to hear that. I also heard a lot about the 5 million developer grant program that you guys launched. That was super, super interesting. And can you tell us a bit more about that as well?
Yeah, we have historically had like a number of close partners we're working on building dApps with, but we wanted to kind of jumpstart and kind of light the fire even more in offering grants more publicly to the general community. And the grant program is basically geared on towards bootstrapping or helping with development, going to market for applications that are leveraging the core functionality of Zetachain in new and interesting ways. At least from what we've seen so far, there's a lot of very interesting stuff that is actually kind of low-hanging fruit from the development perspective. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for even independent developers, as well as existing projects, of course, to build on Zetachain. I keep going back to the Uniswap example, but it is kind of representative of the simplicity of developing with Zetachain, where you can really take a lot of the stuff that you would develop on Ethereum mainnet or on an L2 and deploy it on Zetachain, and with minimal changes, get it to be fully cross-chain, which is super powerful for a lot of use cases. Something like Thorchain, for example, which is kind of an application-specific version of Zetachain, just focus on DEX, could be deployed on Zetachain in, I mean, aside from being fully audited and all that, in a matter of hours or days rather than weeks or months. Super excited about the grant program. If any of you guys want to apply, please do.
I have to ask you, because you come from specifically a design and engineering perspective, what does it take for somebody to do what you're doing and lead product development and work with that? What are the unique facets that somebody should be looking at if they're interested in a career journey such as yours?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in Web 2, as a kind of comparison, someone coming from a pure design or pure product perspective can come into a company and be able to kind of lead product in a lot of ways without having to get into the technicalities. But I think for crypto, because all of it is so kind of close to the metal or very like low level, having the underlying technical understanding is uh, kind of the base entry point, I would say. And prior to Zetachain, I didn't have much technical understanding of the crypto ecosystem in general. So it is something where you can ramp up quite quickly. There are a lot of resources and a lot of people willing to talk and kind of teach each other. And since it's so new, 2-3 years in the space makes you quite senior as compared to a lot of the Web2 industries where people have decades or more of experience.
Yeah, that's definitely unique about this industry. But what makes it even more innovative and unique is how willing the community is actually to talk to you and help you out and transfer all the value that you have through your perspective into things with products and so on. All right, Brandon, so thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today and looking forward to more Zetachain updates. Thanks again.